They called it a necessary enforcement, a flicker of plasma, a scream that never finished. The child's body crumpled in a sterile courtyard on Verix 9. 7 years old, brown curls, dimpled smile. Leah Morgan, daughter of a diplomatic attaché from Earth, executed by order of Governor Vrelk of the Zorathi Empire on a livestream, no less. The camera lingered on her still form for 6 full seconds, before cutting to the governor's hollow eyes. The punishment fits the defiance. He'd said. The feed was meant to be a warning, a demonstration. Earth's protest of resource taxes on the neutral colony had gone too far. The child was collateral, nothing more. A reminder to the Terrans that they were still subjects, just another species beneath the Empire's 1,000-planet sprawl. The feed reached Earth in 13 seconds. For 6 hours, Earth said nothing, no statement, no retaliation, no visible movement of troops. The interplanetary news hubs waited, salivated, then declared Earth's silence a show of submission. The Empire laughed behind closed doors. Of course the humans wouldn't risk war. They were traders, builders, artists, good at tech, sure, clever little monkeys, but soft, emotionally unstable, governed by whim, already divided. They'd grumble, pull back an ambassador, maybe hold a vigil on one of their oceanside cities. Then they'd move on. They always moved on. The Empire didn't know about the protocols. They didn't know Earth had written its vengeance laws in iron, buried beneath centuries of peace and diplomacy. 3,000 years of violence, condensed into legislation. They didn't know what it meant when a red banner was raised at Earth's Orbital Defense Council, and all human diplomatic vessels simultaneously broke encryption with the ancient code, revenge fire. They didn't know that Leah Morgan's mother, Ambassador Sierra Morgan, didn't cry on the public feed, not because she was numb, but because she knew what would come next. They didn't know Earth had enemies before. And Earth had learned. They didn't know about Kepler-12, or what used to live there. They didn't know that the Terran Defense Initiative had never disbanded, just disappeared. They didn't know about the man who stood in the middle of Earth's subterranean command chamber, silent, watching the still frame of Lia's execution play on loop. General Isaac Halverson, a veteran of no known war, his file scrubbed so clean it left more questions than answers. A man whose only words in that moment, recorded for history, were, "Light the match." Across Mars, Earth, Titan, Europa, even the outer colonies, Terran. Fleet signals went dark, civilian comms continued. Trade routes ran. The stars looked the same, but something changed, quietly, deliberately, like a breath. Held under water. The Zorathi Empire's border worlds began to receive small, unnoticed pings on long-range scanners, bursts of neutrinos in coded sequence. Some believed it was an anomaly, sensor ghosting from deep space anomalies. One technician saw the pattern, tried to raise an alert. His file ended in natural causes. But he died with his console screen open, highlighting a single translated sequence. As of them after Lia's death, the Verix 9 governor's palace was vaporized. No warning, no fleet, no weapons trail. 1 second it stood, gleaming, in obsidian and brass. The next, it ceased to exist, along with the governor and his staff. A crater marked where his cruelty had planted its flag. The Empire deployed probes. Nothing was found. No trace of ship movement, energy discharge, or planetary weapons. Just precision. A cut so clean it felt surgical. Earth still hadn't said a word. Admiral Kethfer of the Zorathi Central Navy voiced the thought aloud at the next council meeting. They are trying to frighten us. High Consul Ralvek sneered. Then let them try. We are the Empire. We have extinguished stars to remind people of their place. Someone asked how many ships Earth commanded. There was no answer. Earth had never submitted full military census. To the Central Registry. We will force their hand, said Ralvek. If they do not yield, they will be taught to kneel. On day 10, a Terran diplomatic ship was seen approaching Gali Station, an Empire-controlled orbital hub. The Empire prepared to seize it, expecting protesters or demands, but it didn't. It exploded on approach, sending a data burst milliseconds before impact. Not an attack in archive. The entire Empire network was flooded with a multi-sensory transmission. It wasn't a threat. It was Leah Morgan's last day, her playing with other kids. Her favorite song. Her voice, soft and small, saying, "I want to be an explorer like Mama. I want to go to all the stars and make friends with everyone." For the first time in centuries, the Empire paused. And for the first time in their long reign, they felt something very old. Something they thought beneath them. Fear. Because they realized they had made a mistake, not in killing a child, but in assuming the humans would forgive. In every war Earth had ever fought, they had bled more than any species, but they never lost. What made them dangerous? They remembered. And now, the humans were remembering all at once. The match had been lit, the silence was over, and the Empire had no idea what it had just awakened. It started with the stars going quiet. Empire outposts along the Terran border began losing contact, not with Earth, but with each other. Relay stations failed to ping, signal buoys blinked offline one by one, and patrol routes reported shifts in gravitational anomalies that vanished before scans could lock on. The Empire's own systems assured them everything was functioning. There were no enemy vessels in sight, no signs of battle. But the silence grew louder by the day. Admiral Keffer stood aboard the Tyrannus Vorn, flagship of the 8th Imperial Armada. He stared at the tactical hologram of the border regions and rubbed a digit along his jawline, chitin scraping on metal. "They're probing," he muttered to himself, "but we can't see them." No one in the Empire had ever fought a full scale war against Earth. There'd been minor skirmishes, pirate disputes, economic sanctions, but not war. Not like this. And still, Earth hadn't declared anything. There was no ultimatum, no official communique, not even a single broadcasted speech. Just this unsettling precision, erasing one note at a time, like they were picking apart a web. The Central War Council received a new report. 32 cargo vessels from the Inner Rim failed to arrive at their destinations. All were carrying weapon components or raw materials scheduled for planetary fortifications near Terran space. They'd all disappeared within an 18-hour window. No debris, no emergency beacons, no survivors. They must be using cloaked ships. A strategist offered, "No cloaking field can hide heat signatures," said another, "unless they've developed something we haven't seen before." That suggestion earned a room full of silence. Keffer voiced what no one else dared say. "We're not seeing them because they don't want to be seen." On day 16, a recording surfaced from a salvaged mining rig on the outskirts of the Darokas system. The rig had been split open cleanly, no explosions, no energy burns, just a massive hull breach as though a perfect circle had been carved into the metal. Inside, all personnel were gone. The rig's ACI core was still active. Damaged but recoverable. One image was left, repeatedly saved across backups. A figure. Human, in full combat armor, no insignia, kneeling beside a young Darokasi minor child, offering what appeared to be a chocolate bar. The child was crying. The human held out a hand, and then the feed cut to static. Later analysis showed the image had been edited into the system after the rig's collapse. Deliberately placed there. A message. "We remember who they are," Keffer whispered, but the younger officers laughed it off. "They're still just humans. They can't hide forever. They don't have the numbers." A junior admiral from the Ref colonies raised a brow. "Do you know how many humans there are?" "Less than us." "Wrong. Much less than we think, because we only counted the ones who reported in." The room paused. She continued, "They breed in extremes. Some of their deep colonies haven't been heard from in generations. And we never enforced registration. In the frontier sectors, how many are out there, raised by radiation storms and vacuum, grown in places even our drones avoid? No one answered. On day 21, the Empire responded. 14 fleets moved into position across the border, expecting retaliation. Instead, they found empty space. Planets that were once human colonies were silent, powered down, abandoned. No structures remained, not even trash. Cleared with surgical intent. Sensors occasionally pinned. Nothing. That's what unnerved the crews most. No confirmation. No enemy contacts. Just phantom readings, gravitational hiccups, and whispers. Literally. One Imperial scout ship reported hearing voices in the audio static. "Please," one crewman wrote in his log, "tell me I didn't hear her voice. The little girl. I heard her say my name." On day 24, Earth spoke, just once. Every screen relay station, ship interface, and AI within the Empire flashed black, then showed a single feed, a sea of stars, silent and wide. Then a woman's voice, clear, calm, and cold. "You killed a child who only wanted to make friends. Now we come to remind you what you made of us." The screen faded to white. The voice had no accent, no identifiers. But those who knew recognized it as Ambassador Morgan, Leah's mother. The Empire held another emergency session. The suggestion was made, quietly, to offer reparations. Symbolic, of course. Money, a public apology. Maybe the execution of the governor's remaining relatives. But by then, it was too late. Ships began to vanish within Empire space, far from Earth's borders. Facilities critical to long-range logistics stopped transmitting. Drones retrieved from attacked locations reported an impossible truth. The weapons used weren't standard Terran military tech. They were older, cruder, more dangerous, ballistic slugs, firebombs, razor-flecked charges. One analyst said it aloud. "They're not just using modern weapons. They're using everything they've ever made for war." And that's when the Empire understood. Humans weren't just coming. They were unleashing themselves, all of themselves. And the worst part? They hadn't even started yet. The first real battle wasn't even recorded properly. It happened in the Fargal Expanse, a dust storm region of charged particles and magnetic interference, making scans notoriously unreliable. The Empire had stationed a logistics carrier convoy there. 13 ships, guarded by 2 destroyers and 1 battleship, meant to pass unnoticed. A backup resupply route in case of open war. At exactly 3:44 Galactic Standard, the destroyer Vosk Tal blinked offline. 2 minutes later, the convoy's command ship, Irex Null, issued a scrambled distress signal. One word repeated 3 times. "They're inside. They're inside. They're..." The signal cut off. By the time Empire reinforcements arrived, they found a debris field arranged in a perfect spiral. No survivors, no power cores. Just metal torn in ways no known energy weapon could accomplish. The forensic teams didn't understand it at first. The hull damage patterns were irregular, vicious, almost personal. Shards of hull plating showed traces of thermite. Others had been pierced by high-density tungsten spikes. Not plasma. Not antimatter. Not even the new dark field ISAR UPTO RS. Projectiles. Humans had gone retro. They're using kinetic weaponry? High Consul Ralvek spat in disgust when the report reached him. Like savages? But others were slower to dismiss it. A retired weapons engineer reviewed the materials and simply muttered, "No energy signature, no lock-on trail. No shielded defense algorithm would even notice these before impact." That wasn't the twist. The twist came when one of the Empire's intelligence analysts decrypted what they believed to be a human fallback code recovered from a drift buoy near the Fargal site. The contents weren't coordinates or tactical data. It was a history file. Specifically, a breakdown of Earth's 20th and 21st century warfare, trench raids, urban sieges, guerrilla tactics, psychological disruption. The analyst played a random entry and watched footage of a soldier in mud-stained armor crawling under barbed wire, clutching a rusting rifle and screaming something in a dead language. Overhead, explosions painted the sky orange. The next file showed a drone swarm reducing an enemy tank to dust in a city made of steel and glass. The next showed a mushroom cloud. The analyst turned pale. They're studying their own history. Earth wasn't just fighting back. Earth was revisiting everything it had once done, its wars, its failures, its brutality, and bringing it forward like a dark gospel. They weren't just deploying tech, they were deploying lessons. Why would they use such inefficient methods? Kethver asked during a security briefing. Why bring back weapons that haven't been used in centuries? A deep voice answered from the back of the chamber. Because fear isn't just about power, said a tall figure stepping forward, flanked by two guards. His voice carried the accent of Earth's northern hemisphere, old Terran English. It's about unpredictability, chaos, and pain. The chamber fell silent. The figure was human. They called him Marcus Kane, once a field operative embedded within the Empire's outer colonies as a diplomatic attach. Now a confirmed operative of Earth's Black Echo Division, a group most within the Empire dismissed as myth. He had been captured 2 weeks earlier. Voluntarily, as it turned out. And now, he was smiling. You assumed humanity had evolved out of barbarism, he said. That we'd grown soft, peaceful, fragile. But peace was never our nature, it was a choice. One we made because we feared ourselves more than anything outside us. Then why unchain yourselves now? Ralvek demanded, face coiled in fury. Kane leaned forward, eyes like dead suns. Because you killed a child. A beat of silence. He continued. Do you know what Leah Morgan's death triggered? Not a policy. Not a government vote. A protocol. He turned toward Kethver. You've never heard of Protocol Revenant. Have you? Kethver said nothing. Of course not, Kane smiled. You see, it's not military. It's cultural. A civilization-wide failsafe embedded in every school, every media hub, every ship something our ancestors left behind. The moment a non-combatant child dies at the hands of a foreign power during peacetime, Earth's war machine reboots. No debates, no hesitations, just activation, Ralvek scoffed. You expect us to believe that? Kane shrugged. Believe what you want. You've already lost. Moments later, 3 internal power generators on the Capitol station exploded. Not enough to destroy it, but enough to shut down shields and disrupt navigation. Exactly 8 seconds later, every active screen showed an Earth military sigil not seen in 300 years. The Terran Defense Initiative, a remnant force. Believed to have been disbanded after the Screen War of 2892, known only in whispers. Studied by military theorists. No longer theoretical. It was back. The Empire had no time to mount a full response. 8 colonies went dark in under 12 hours. Human. Ships still weren't visible. But they were there. They struck from subspace folds. They appeared inside hangars. They reprogrammed security mid-firefight and turned stations against themselves. They didn't just kill soldiers. They broke systems. Dozens of crew were found huddled in corners, alive but mentally shattered, whispering old Earth lullabies they couldn't have possibly known. Give it back. One commander wept into his hands before execution. Give the child back. Earth had turned pain into doctrine. They weren't invading. They were hunting. And now, the Empire finally understood. They hadn't made a strategic mistake. They'd awakened a myth. The Empire retaliated with fury. After the loss of 8 colonies and the utter silence from the Terran attackers, the Council approved Directive Sindar Total Theater Lockdown. Entire sectors were firewalled with advanced sensor nets. Automated. Kill-sat rings were deployed. Civilian traffic was suspended across 38 systems. Every ship capable of FTL was reassigned to border patrol. It was overkill, and it didn't matter, because humans weren't attacking from the borders anymore. They were already inside. The Empire's high command learned this the hard way on day 39. A Tier 3 vault ship, Sereth Vox, containing a full digital record of Empire military architecture, was lost en route to relocation. No trace of impact. No alert. Nothing. When forensic drones reached the flight path, they found the vessel adrift, perfectly intact, floating in the void. Crew gone. The systems offline. A single phrase had been carved into the bridge wall in over 60 different languages, including some long thought extinct. You lit the fire. We are the storm. What unnerved the analysts most wasn't the message. It was the realization that some of the languages used were pre-digital. Human handwriting. Ancient tongues. How could they even know half these dialects? One linguist whispered. The answer came from a classified Terran file stolen months earlier during a minor intelligence skirmish. The Echo Memory Archive. A human cultural database containing every recorded war poem, death chant, lullaby, and strategic doctrine from Earth's known history. It was being weaponized. Earth wasn't just attacking with soldiers. They were attacking with memory. Entire planetary networks across the outer rim began encountering ghost code viruses that didn't destroy systems, but rewrote their use to show grainy, black and white footage of Earth's bloodiest centuries. Screaming trench soldiers, marches through ruined cities, children holding rifles, bombed-out schoolhouses with chalkboards still intact, and the voices always the voices soft, calm, human. We were like you, once. Then came the bodies. On the agricultural world of Vunkar, 2 entire battalions of Empire troops were found dead, weapons untouched, no signs of trauma, no energy burns. Every single one had died clutching their heads, expressions frozen in terror. Autopsies revealed ruptured neural cores, consistent with high-frequency auditory attacks. The weapon? A modified Terran signal sent through planetary arrays, coded as an old Earth nursery rhyme. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. The song had been slowed, distorted, and buried in subliminal loops, echoing for hours before anyone realized. It was even playing. They're not targeting our bodies, Admiral Kethver growled. They're dismantling our minds. Still, the Empire fought back. A dozen anti-spectral fleets were created, staffed with their best tacticians and AI defenses. Advanced counterintelligence teams began tracing possible attack vectors. 1. Victory came on day 45, when Empire forces finally cornered a squad of Terran operatives on the planet Jorsek, 16 human soldiers. Outnumbered 12-1, they fought for 19 hours. By the end, the Empire had lost 3 times their number. Every Terran soldier wore obsolete armor bullet-pocked, scavenged from museums, painted with war paint and crude symbols. Some wore skulls of unknown species on their shoulders. One had no weapon at all, just a length of carbon wire and a rusted hammer. When the last one was killed, his helmet camera was still transmitting. He looked directly into the lens, bloodied, grinning. "You should have left us alone," he said. "You should have let the stars forget who we were." The recording went viral across Empire networks before censors could wipe it. And that's when the Empire began to break. Not from losses, but from doubt. Why were they winning so rarely? Why were human tactics so precise, so deeply personal? Because the humans weren't using central command structures. They weren't deploying in fleets. They weren't following standard logic. They were operating in tribes, small, decentralized fire teams, each with their own playbooks and targets. Some coordinated through low-tech signal pulses. Others left encoded poetry carved into rocks and ruins as guidance. One team reportedly used only sign language and carved sigils to communicate. No traceable data. This wasn't a war. This was a cultural purge. And worse, humans weren't just attacking military assets anymore. They began targeting memory nodes, temples, libraries, historical databases. They weren't destroying them. They were rewriting them. Footage surfaced from a shrine world on Myrix V, once home to a digital monument of Empire victories. Now the display showed human faces, refugees, soldiers, children, laughing, crying, screaming. A message flickered across every wall. You erased one of ours, so we will overwrite all of you. Panic began to bloom within Empire citizens, not from the loss of power, but from the identity crisis now sweeping through the core worlds. Children began asking who the humans were, asking why no one had told them what Earth had once been, asking if the stories about Liam Morgan were true. Worse, some of them began wearing human colors, quoting human literature, singing old Terran protest songs on public channels. Humanity had stopped asking for justice. Now they were teaching. By day 50, several outer sector planets had gone dark, not from human strikes, but self-isolation. Whole populations withdrew from the Empire, fearful that proximity alone might draw Terran wrath. Soldiers deserted. Some even defected, bringing with them stolen maps, files, and most chillingly apologies. One such message, intercepted by Empire Command, was simple. We didn't know. We thought you were small. We thought you were kind. We thought you had forgotten what you were. We were wrong. Please don't come here. But the humans would, because Earth wasn't fighting to win. They were fighting to be remembered. The rumors began in whispers, tales dismissed by Imperial Command as fear-fueled hallucinations. A fleet of ships appearing in systems thought inaccessible, powered by drives that didn't register on known sensors. Planets disappearing from known coordinates, not destroyed, but simply gone. Reports of entire Empire garrisons laying down their weapons before a single human fired a shot. Some claiming they had dreamt of Liam Morgan, standing in firelight. Silently watching, the Council convened in emergency seclusion. Internal data leaks were escalating. Civil unrest was creeping into core worlds. Worst of all, deserters were defecting to the humans, some providing valuable infrastructure maps and command frequencies in exchange for safety. It wasn't just a military collapse anymore. It was spiritual. And then Earth unveiled its second secret. Not with a weapon, not with a battle, but with a signal. It arrived without fanfare, a compressed data packet, pushed simultaneously to every major communication node across the galaxy. The Empire, the fringe systems, even neutral parties. 1 terabyte of open access. Memory. It contained a single phrase. You took one of ours. We bring all of ours back. Attached was a list. At first, no one understood. Names, millions of names. Human names, some centuries old, others recent. Each name included a timestamp, genetic sequence, and one location. Status: active. By the time Empire scientists deciphered the code, they realized what they were seeing. Earth had found a way to resurrect the lost, not in body, but in mind. Using quantum mnemonic mapping and deep genetic imprints stored in the ancient colonies, Earth had reactivated what they called the Thanatos Lineage Protocol, a forgotten Terran AI initiative designed to preserve every fallen soldier's psyche within dormant code, awaiting full reintegration. It had failed long ago, or so they thought. Now, it was active. Across the stars, a new generation of warriors was awakening, some born, some grown, others synthesized, but all carrying the memories of the dead. They called them Echo-born. Human soldiers who remembered past lives, who remembered wars they had never fought, who wept for lovers centuries gone, who felt pain before they ever held a weapon. And they were coming. The Empire reeled. This was no longer about superior firepower. This was psychological warfare carried into reincarnation. Echo-born teams began operating independently behind enemy lines, faster, smarter, merciless. They didn't retreat. They didn't sleep. They remembered too much to ever stop. One captured soldier, an alien hybrid from the Thon division, begged to be euthanized after a failed assault on the Aegis belt. I saw his eyes, he whispered, shaking. He spoke like he'd known me for years, but I've never seen him before. He told me my name. Your real name? The interrogator asked. The soldier sobbed. No, the name I gave my sister when I was 5. A secret name. I never told anyone, but he knew. He remembered. The interrogator logged the event as psychological breakdown, but deep down, even she was afraid. Back on the Imperial homeworld, High Consul Ralvek stood before a secret chamber. No aides, no guards. Just an obsidian door sealed since before the Empire's rise. An artifact left untouched, inherited from the galaxy's forgotten age. He input the codes. The door hissed open. Inside, a single display, ancient and dormant. Activated it, and there she was, a hologram of a human girl, frozen in time, Leah Morgan. She smiled, spoke. Double quotes, hello. If you're seeing this, the Empire hurt me. Ralvek's blood ran cold. You were told I was unimportant. A child, a statistic. But that was a lie. The image flickered, and behind Leah appeared rows of human soldiers, clad in armor from different centuries, different cultures. Samurai, Marines, resistance fighters, shock troopers, tribal hunters, even bare-knuckle brawlers from Earth's earliest wars. Standing still, waiting. Her voice grew quieter. We don't forget our children, and we don't forgive those who harm them. The projection cut to static. Behind the door, something clicked. Ralvek staggered back as data began pouring into Empire systems, millions of shadow protocols activating across his own infrastructure. Earth had left Leah as the key to a digital doomsday trigger, and they had just unlocked it. Suddenly, ships and defense grids across 100 worlds began failing. Auto Defense A is reversed targeting patterns. Medical hubs shut down. Atmospheric stabilizers in terraformed colonies began failing. Humanity hadn't infiltrated the Empire's systems. They'd grown inside them. Centuries of trade, technology, shared infrastructure. Earth had never stopped embedding itself. They had simply waited until the Empire taught them what cruelty was again. Ralvek fell to his knees. Outside his chambers, alarms began to blare. Then a voice, real, flesh and blood, rang through the palace. We gave you every chance. He turned. Marcus Kane stood in the hall, clad in old Terran combat blacks. No weapon visible. Just a look in his eyes, a depth the Empire had no name for. Kane looked down at Ralvek. You thought humans were dangerous when they fought for themselves. He stepped forward. Now imagine what we are when we fight for our dead. From orbit, the Empire's grandest palace was consumed by internal explosions, no external fire. Just systems turning on themselves, as Earth's final signal pulsed one last time. You remember Leah now. And the galaxy learned something else too late. Humans didn't believe in acceptable losses. They believed in vengeance. And they had centuries of it to give. The Battle of Solstice Verge was the last stand of the Imperial Navy. It wasn't planned that way. In fact, Imperial Command had selected Solstice Verge as the site of humanity's final defeat, a choke point of hyperspace lanes, fortified by 5 Dreadnought-class war arcs, a planetary array of Sunlance cannons, and over 2 million troops. Drawn from the Empire's finest. They called it the Wall of Final Mercy, because they believed the humans would come begging. But when the first Terran fleet arrived, it didn't decloak with fanfare or force. It simply appeared 12 ships, silent, angular, jet black with no heat signature, moving like specters through the void. Their surfaces absorbed light, radar, even thought. They made no demands. They issued no warnings. The Empire's admiral laughed. 12 ships? After all their fury, this is what they bring to the storm? He ordered full engagement. 3 minutes later, 2 of the dreadnoughts were gone. Not destroyed, erased. No debris. No escape pods. No energy output. Just silence. Empty space where once entire cities of metal had floated. What did they use? The Admiral screamed as command staff scrambled for answers. No one knew. The Terran fleet never fired a traditional weapon. Instead, localized gravity wells bloomed in perfect spheres around each Imperial vessel, compressing matter into quantum. Not until hulls imploded in on themselves. Ships shattered like glass dipped in black ink. The 12 human vessels continued forward, untouched. Each bore a name: the Leia Morgan, the Ashes of Hiroshima, the Suleiman Wrath, the Geronimo Echo, the Saints of Kinshasa, the Tommy Resistance, the Children of 6 Million. The Red Star remembers. The Echo of Gaza, the Nanking Never Sleeps, the Voice of the Forgotten. And leading them, the Earthbound Promise, on its hull, etched in plasma reactive crystal, were the words, "We bring our dead with us, Empire Defense." Lines collapsed before the second wave even arrived, because the second wave wasn't a fleet. It was them, the Echo-born. Thousands of drop pods screamed into the atmosphere of Solstice Verge Prime, striking the crust like meteor impacts. From the smoking craters rose human warriors wearing no insignia, carrying no formal rank. They fought with primitive blades enhanced with monomolecular edges. Others bore gauntlets linked to neural fire networks, allowing a single gesture to ignite enemy circuits. But they didn't just kill, they hunted. Imperial soldiers reported entire squads vanishing into fog banks that hadn't existed moments before. Others described hearing lullabies in their native tongues right before seeing their commanding officers cut down in silence. The fear reached its breaking point when an Echo-born named Alina Verse stepped in front of an active Sunlance cannon designed to evaporate mountain ranges and survived. Her armor boiled, her skin charred, and she kept walking. When she reached the control tower, she placed a single old photograph of Leia Morgan on the control panel before slicing the firing crew apart with a blade that had once belonged to her great-grandmother. A resistance fighter from Earth's ancient World War II. In orbit, the Earthbound Promise broadcast a signal on every frequency. This is not a war. This is a reckoning. You raised your hand against our child. Now every child of Earth raises theirs. Empire dreadnoughts fled, but they didn't get far. The third wave was waiting. They weren't warships. They were arcs, humanity's seed colonies, once believed dormant, had been hiding entire fleets of planetary conversion rigs machines, designed to reconfigure planets into defensive strongholds, forge moons into weapons platforms, and terraform environments not for habitation, but for warfare. Solstice Verge Prime's oceans boiled. Its moons cracked. The magnetic field inverted. Within an hour, the planet was uninhabitable. The humans left it that way. Not scorched. Not broken. Hollowed. Like a memory that had outlived its use. By the time the Empire's command systems came back online, more than 60% of their navy was gone. Not captured. Not damaged. Gone. Their colonies abandoned. Their senators dead or in hiding. The surviving military forces refused to fight. And when they begged for terms of surrender, Earth sent them a message, just 3 words. Leo was 5. No negotiation. No mercy. No speeches, because it wasn't about victory. It was about message. On every world touched by the Empire, holograms flickered to life. Not of destruction. Not of burning cities or fallen empires, but of Earth's children. Smiling. Laughing. Running through grass and rain. Memory of what they had tried to take from humanity. And the final nail in the Empire's soul came not from a weapon, but from a voice. Leia Morgan's, preserved in ancient Terran quantum audio, projected across every occupied system. My name was Leia. I liked stars and cookies, and my puppy, Max. I didn't understand war. But I understand this. Earth remembers. And then nothing. The human fleet withdrew. No occupation. No annexation. No grand flag planted in the ashes of the empire. Just silence. The kind that followed after thunder. The kind that said, "We came, we saw, and we will always come again. If you forget what we are." The empire had mistaken humanity for prey. They had mistaken kindness for weakness. They had mistaken grief for surrender. And now they were nothing more than a warning. The ruins of the empire stood quiet under the light of unfamiliar stars. No more fleets, no more mandates, no more songs of dominion echoing through conquered systems. What remained were broken palaces, fractured data paths, and the hollow stares of survivors who had once called themselves rulers of the galaxy. In the years that followed, historians, both human and alien, struggled to give the war a name. Some called it the Day of Reckoning, others the Memory War, but among the Empire's scattered remnants, it came to be known only by one phrase: the Child's Vengeance, on the world of Varix 9. Once a shining gem of imperial culture, an elderly archivist named Horael sat alone in the remains of a once great library. Dust choked the air. Screens flickered dimly. Shelves stood half-burned, their contents lost. He was the last of his kind, an old scholar who had once catalogued the rise of emperors. Now, he catalogued their END. A holographic recording played before him. Again, Leah Morgan. 5 years old. A child who had laughed beneath a blue sky on a planet the Empire never thought to fear. He watched her wave at the camera, hold up a drawing of her family. The image froze, burned into the flickering light, her small hands holding stick figure versions of her parents, her dog, and a big blocky sun above their heads. "I don't understand," he whispered. "How could the death of one child?" His voice trailed off, because the answer had been there all along. They hadn't just killed a human child, they had wounded Earth. And Earth did not forget its wounds. It buried them in steel, wrapped them in memory, and forged them into warships, into warriors, into legends. The Empire had built itself on numbers, on discipline, on fear. But humans built themselves on stories. And when Earth returned to the stars, it brought every story with it. Every genocide, every orphan, every fallen soldier, every act of cruelty its people had endured, and it vowed, never again. On the frontier world of Yatara, a small child, an alien blue-skinned with mirrored eyes, sat cross-legged in the sand, listening to her grandmother tell stories of the old wars. The girl was born long after the fall of the Empire, yet she knew the name Leah Morgan better than any of her own leaders. "She was only a little older than you," the grandmother said gently, combing dust from the child's hair. "And she changed the stars. Did she fight?" "No," the old woman said, smiling. "She existed, and that was enough." All across the galaxy, statues rose not of Leah as a soldier, but as a child, laughing, running, holding a ball. Painted in the styles of each species who now understood what the Empire had made them complicit in. There were no more Empire flags flying, but there were playgrounds built by humans on worlds once ravaged by war, open to all species. Constructed as reminders, one bore a plaque, translated into every known tongue. "This playground is protected by Earth. Harm a child here, and the sky will burn again." The galaxy changed, not because Earth conquered it, but because Earth had reminded it of something it had forgotten. The cost of innocence. Peace treaties now included provisions for child safety above all else. Interstellar laws adopted the Laia Accords, requiring sanctuary for civilians in any armed conflict. And humanity? Humanity withdrew. They didn't stay to rule. They left embassies, guardians, memory-keepers. But they returned home, to Earth and its colonies. Not because they were finished, but because they had made their point. Leah Morgan had been one of billions, but the message was eternal. Every human mattered. Every single one on Earth. In a quiet park overlooking the sea, A small garden bloomed under artificial starlight. A plaque at its center read, "To those who were taken, to those who remembered, and to those who made sure we would never forget." A woman sat beside it, middle-aged, hair touched with gray, eyes sharp and clear. Her name was Captain Elena. Morgan, Leah's mother. She didn't speak much anymore. She didn't need to. The galaxy had heard her scream long ago and had never forgotten the sound. Now, children played behind her, alien and human alike, laughing, and when one of them tripped and cried out, she stood steady, quiet, and helped them up with a smile. Far above, satellites hummed. Not as weapons. Not anymore. But as watchers. Earth did not conquer the stars. It held them accountable. And for those who asked why, the answer was carved into the heart of every story told across the galaxy. Because humanity fights for its own. Always. To the last breath. To the last world. To the last name carved in memory. And when the stars forget what fear is, Earth will remind them